And recording we are. So EdPuzzle, hopefully you already know sort of what it's about. Maybe that's why you signed up for the session, but if you do not, EdPuzzle is a third party. It is not part of the Google G Suite, but it is designed to work in a nice cohesive fashion. So anything with Google will work with EdPuzzle. EdPuzzle will work with Google. But the idea behind EdPuzzle is it'll take any video you can find. It could be a video on YouTube. And as you can see, some popular channels, as they call them, being like Khan Academy, National Geographic, TED Talks. Some of the videos you're probably familiar with in the education setting are already nicely available inside of here. But just because you go into this area and you do not see, like, maybe it brings up a handful of videos on YouTube, but you know, on this first screen, you don't see something that applies to you, you can use this just like you would a YouTube search, bring up a video you like, and then you can proceed to trim it if you'd like. You can add questions to pop up. That's kind of the unique features that EdPuzzle has versus just sharing a regular YouTube video link with your students. And as I mentioned, it's meant to work cohesively, so you'll need to be able to bring in your Google Classroom into here. And they made it a really nice streamlined process to do so. So I'm going to show you as far as I can from someone who has already established a connection. When you get in here for the first time, you're going to be met with a couple of different pop-ups that I'm not going to be able to show you, but I can, you know, try to answer them best I can as you go through this experience as well. From doing the session earlier, I know some people were listening to my voice and following along to kind of click where they needed to in order to do it. Or you can just watch this video YouTube playback when I have it available online in another couple of days. I'm actually going to, in the chat window, give you the link to my YouTube channel. So if you wanted to subscribe to it, and then when that video becomes available, you will be notified. Also, any of the other lunch and learns that we've had over the last few days, including like John Mason's Loom, and he also did the YouTube streaming one. We had Amy Nardone and the Brain Pop. All of those ones that we've had, as I've been getting them and had a chance to get them online, I am posting them on that YouTube channel. So feel free to access that as it is helpful to you. So going on, I'm already logged in, but I'm going to log out for just a second. So the important thing to know when you're in EdPuzzle is you're not technically signing up for an account, you're logging in. Even if you've never been in here before, coming back to that school of thought that it's linked with Google, you technically have a Google account already with EHT. So what you're doing is you're logging in to use EdPuzzle. So I'm going to hit log in here, and it's going to ask me if I'm a teacher or a student. So in this case, of course, I'm going to be a teacher. And people will think that they need to type in an email address, a password here, and then click login. That is not the case, though. You're going to sign in with Google. You're going to have to remember to click this button, not type it in up here. When you do that, you're going to be used to this sort of pop-up window that comes up where you're going to have to select your school EHT account. And remember, I've already been in here, so I'm not going to be met with some of the pop-ups that you may see. Some of the questions that I've gotten from people is they're going to get a pop-up of if this is allowed to be used for children, for students, if you're going to use it in that method, and does it comply with, you know, all that kind of COPA stuff. That particular rule or law does not apply to anyone over the age of 13. So if you're talking 8th grade and up, you don't have to worry about that anyway. But I did get confirmation before I jumped in on this session that because we are using it with Google and that does comply, and we already have policies in place to say that we are using it and it is acceptable for students. That means all the way down from pre-K and up, as long as they're an EHT student and they have an EHT login, you're good to go. So if you get that screen, just make sure you acknowledge that this is okay and you have the overreaching rights to be able to use it in here. It's just a checkbox. You only have to do it one time, but I did want to let people know as they were asking me earlier. The other thing too is we do have a pro license at EHT, so that's a great thing. But if you're going to ask me what your code is, I don't know off the top of my head. I told the last session that I'm going to have to send a group email back to everyone to let them know what their code is. You can also reach out to your school's librarian. It seems like they know what the codes are. But if you can wait, I'm working on getting that information for you so I can give you that information back. So if you run into that stumbling block, just know that you can reach out to the librarian, or I'm going to work on getting that for you, hopefully by the end of today, so you can get in here and play around. I'll also mention, because I didn't say it already, if you have a question as I'm going through something, feel free to use the chat window to write something in here. I'll continue to come back and look at it. When I'm showing you the EdPuzzle website, I can't see the chat window, so I have to come back and monitor it. If you find that you need to just, virtually raise your hand, you can unmute your microphone, and of course, I will address you that way as well. All right, so assuming that you got to this point, that you have agreed that this is compliant for students and that you have the appropriate professional code to get in here, this is sort of the homepage of what EdPuzzle looks like. So you'll see that when you're first in here, there's a couple of different options here. Down here is where you can choose some videos that are already available that, really from any reach of the internet that has a video. These are the top places you can go to get that. But I'm also going to show you up in this area. Now, think of the My Content being like your My Drive of Google. So these are going to be where you create videos, or you find videos on YouTube that you like, or you find videos in one of these other popular channels here, and maybe you trim them down to what you want them to be, and it has the questions that you have. Any of that sort of customization is going to live inside of the My Content area. Now, the nice thing in here is that there is a spot called, for me, Egg Harbor Township Schools. I have found, since doing this presentation earlier this morning, that since I became a member in here a few years ago, originally it was Egg Harbor Township Schools was the school that you join. But since that time, now there's an Alder, there's a Davenport, there's all different ones. So you may not see the same school as I do, but that's where that pro license is going to come in. And that's where my understanding is your librarian will have the code for you. But inside of this particular school is there's 25 teachers in here. And from a quick glance, the majority of them are high school teachers. So I know that most of the content in here is going to come from a high school teacher, as far as, like I said, I understand it to be. That may not be the case that, I see like Kelly Wenzel's in here. She's a middle school teacher. So, really it's just a matter of what you can share or see from other people. Going back to that philosophy of My Content being my drive in Google, the school that you're inside of, think of that like a shared with me area. So I'm able to access what other teachers at EHT have decided to trim up into videos or make questions for, and you can reuse whatever that other teacher made and assign it into your Google Classroom. So if you're in a PLC and you decide that there's a tech savvy one amongst you, or you want to take turns and each person make a EdPuzzle video, then you can share, the assignments that each one of you create and put into your own Google Classroom. So super nice that way. If I were to go into one of these topics, I've been showing people the language arts one. You'll see that there's like two teachers in particular who are in here a lot, and they've made a number of different videos and content. Now, when I say they made them, some of them may have just copied an original one that they found and made some adjustments to it, and now it lives inside of this area for me to be able to access. So just to show you a few things, like now you're going to learn video speak, because before this, who needed to know that? Now you're going to have to, right? Because of the distance learning things that we're in. So I'll tell you a couple of vocab terms. This first thing would be the time code. This is how long the video is going to play. That doesn't mean the original video could have been longer, but the trimmed up version is going to be, this one is 8 minutes and 37 seconds. This one right here is 3 minutes and 2 seconds, and so on. This number right here tells you how many little questions or pop-up things happen throughout that video. So in this 8 minute and 37 second video, there are 10 questions that will appear throughout this video. And in this 3 minute video, there's also 10 questions. So you can imagine that more questions are going to pop up more often. And really that this has the same number of questions, but they may be a little more sporadic in the video. Where in this case, for this 12-minute video, there's only one question that pops up. So if that makes sense for whatever you need, you can add more questions or delete them, and I'll get into that shortly. But I'm going to go ahead and go into this crash course area, which I've been using an Industrial Revolution video that I like. It's one of my favorite periods of time in history, so I've been using that for today. Now, the first step is to actually watch the video to see if it actually works for what you need. And remember, too, you can go on YouTube and find a video and bring it in the same way. I just went through the library of things that came up. I typed in Industrial Revolution, and that's what appeared for this particular topic. So I could play it, and I'm going to watch it, see if it applies for what I wanted to go over in class. And like a lot of YouTube videos, there's usually a lot of beginning talk that we could just skip and get to the point. So I could kind of skip into getting past the opening, and I know I'm going to want to start around 33 seconds probably for this video. Let's say that I'm okay with just showing the video the way it is, and I don't want to edit it at all. I could just hit assign, and I would go through a series of steps to assign it to my Google Classroom. I did not actually show you how to link up your Google Classroom yet, but I will in a little bit. So going back, let's say I had my Google Classroom already established and I just wanted to assign it here. And it was brought up earlier, why wouldn't I just share the YouTube video link? And why am I going into EdPuzzle to do this? Then one of the nice features is that it lives inside of EdPuzzle, that you can mark off that the student watched the video. There's no ads that come up. And like I said, if you go through the extra step of trimming up the video and adding those questions, you know, this becomes more of an interactive lesson rather than them just going to YouTube and watching a video. So I'm going to assume that I want to trim up this video and add some questions. So instead of going straight to assign, I need to go ahead and hit edit. So when I get to edit, you're going to see this blue bar down here at the bottom. That is the entire length of the video right now from stop to start. And the way it stands right now is it's 11 minutes and 4 seconds. But I'm shooting for more like a 5-minute video as what I'm, thinking in my head would be more appropriate for this lesson. So going back to the vocabulary term with video, I need to trim the video. I need to splice it. I need to cut it up into the parts that I want to keep. So I need to use the blue bar and scrub through the video to get to the part where I want it to start. So maybe right around this 1-minute mark makes sense for what I want. And maybe I wanted to end a little earlier. I wanted to end before, gets the credits and everything. And right about here is where I wanted to end. So as of right now, the video is 7 minutes and 41 seconds. But another nice thing that's a more recent feature inside of EdPuzzle is you can also trim out parts in the middle. Originally, when I first got in here, you could only trim the end and trim the beginning, and hopefully the meat in the middle is the part you wanted to keep. But if you add a cut, in a few seconds, you'll see it added a cut that I can then keep this part of the video. I could keep that part of the video. And now my video is going to be a total of 4 minutes and 44 seconds. And it's going to take out the parts it doesn't need. And the kids will only watch the parts that are in blue. So once I have that established, this is the edit I wanted. I'm going to have to go up to Voiceover is the next thing. You can skip over this part. You can really skip over any of these parts if they don't apply to you. I'm just showing you all the features in one, cohesive step here. So a voiceover would take your voice, your recording, and replace whatever the audio is behind the video. So if you don't necessarily want just this guy explaining, the history of American education in this part, and I wanted to have my voice in here, I could hit start recording and the video will play while it's got my voice in the background, and it's going to replace whatever audio would have been in there in real time. So now the students would hear my voice and not hear the audio in the background. When I hit stop recording, it would then go back to the original edited sound if it needed to. I can listen to the audio here by hitting play. And the video will play while it's got my voice in the background, and it's going to replace whatever audio would have been in there. So you can see, like, if I was okay with that, I could keep it. I could also trash it and redo it. If I wanted my voiceover to happen at a different part of the video, I could just click and drag it to the part that I want it to play at. I did hear a comment come up, so let me just check that real fast. Will the Pro version have the cut tool active? I believe so, because if I have access to it right now, I'm imagining that's one of the Pro features. So just to confirm, you don't have to make a copy of the video. No, you don't. The only reason you'd have to make a copy is if you found someone else's already trimmed video that you liked. that you wanted to add it to your content and make a couple changes, that's where you would make a copy from. So the final component here would be questions. This is what, again, makes EdPuzzle stand out really more than any other tool. So I could go to questions, and at any point of the video, I could force it that it pops up a question. If you want, you can make this all multiple choice. And the nice thing about EdPuzzle, just like a Scantron or using a Google form to do a quiz, if you make them all multiple choice, you don't actually have to go back and grade anything. It'll automatically, you know, by computer calculation, decide which is the right and wrong answer, and it'll push the grade out for you. If you get into multiple, open-ended response questions, as you would normally have for a normal assessment, you're going to have to, as a human, go in and manually grade that response and decide if you want to award the points or not. So just keep that in mind, that if you do have only multiple choice questions, you can have it grade automatically. If you start getting into open-ended, you're going to have to go in and grade it. Just food for thought. Let's say at maybe about a minute and 24 seconds in, I want this multiple choice question to come up. So I'm going to click multiple choice, and I'm going to say, what color is the sky? And then I would put in my correct answer being like blue, and my incorrect answer being green. I could add more and say it's red. If I did in a different order, I could also change up the order. I could say that green was the right answer and blue is the wrong answer by just clicking the appropriate boxes here. And then I would hit save. And now you're going to notice there's a little dot right here. If I scrub over, this little teardrop lets you know that that is where a question will appear. So the yellow is a voiceover. The teardrop is where the questions are coming up in the video. I think I heard another question come in. So just to confirm, you don't have to make a copy of the video before changing it. It will by default, if you go to make changes to it, it will make your own copy. I guess really the question is, if you're thinking of like for special education students or ELL students, maybe you need to do some differentiated instruction. If you have one video that has only maybe 3 questions in it, but then you want to take that same video that you already trimmed and maybe add different questions to it, or whatever that might look like, then you're going to have to make a copy of the one you made and then make those changes to the second video. I hope that made sense. So really only anytime you make changes would you need to make a copy. If you're just making this off of your own, you're not making a copy. Like right now what I'm doing, I just chose a video that I liked and I'm really doing this from scratch. So there was no need to make a copy. If you're choosing a video that a colleague made. So let me hit finish just so I can hold on to this for right now. I go back to EdPuzzle and I go to Egg Harbor Township Schools, and maybe I liked a video that was inside here, this one right here. I could, if I wanted this video and I liked the majority of what she did here, I could copy this. It then gets moved to my content and I could change what questions come up. So if I go into content, this video is now available for me, and I can add and remove questions right in here now that I add it to my content, and I would make a duplicate of it. All right, so going back into my content, I have my Industrial Revolution question video. I can see the multiple choices going to come in at that certain time, and it's 4 minutes long. So overall, I'm happy with what this video looks like. The next step I'm going to show you is how to actually bring in your Google Classroom in so that you can make the assignments. I'm going to have to go into my classes, and your screen will probably look like mine because I cleared it out so you would be able to see what it looks like for someone who's brand new in here. And remember, if you're using Google Classroom already, then you're going to click the Google Classroom button. If you're not venturing into Google Classroom at all, maybe you're using this just as a one-time thing in in your real life classroom, not your virtual classroom, then you could do this whole add new class thing. But I'm going to go with the majority of us at this point are probably using Google Classroom. So I'm going to click on that. Within a couple of seconds, it's going to pull the classrooms I have access to, and then pull all the classes that I'm a teacher in right here. Now, if you have multiple Google Classrooms, you can go ahead and check off all the classes that you want to bring in. or just, if you want to stick with just one, then you can do that too. You'll have to scroll down and hit import classes. And then automatically in a few seconds, you're going to see that US History 1 is now in here. And if I go under students, all the students that were in my classroom are now listed here. I didn't have to manually type in anyone's name, their email address, give anybody a code. It took my Google Classroom people and brought in my EdPuzzle and brought them all together. Somebody was asking me before that if students are using their own device on their phone and they assign it in Google Classroom, do they need an EdPuzzle account? I believe what they'd have to do then is do the sign-in feature like you did. So they're going to have to go in and say that they're a student and then sign in with their Google to be able to access it. But that, I believe, only is going to apply if they're using a phone or a tablet. If they're on a Chromebook, a laptop, a desktop, that won't prompt them. They can just go in from your Google Classroom, make sure they're signed into their school Google account, and then they'd be able to see the work that you assign to them. Because remember, EdPuzzle is its own website, so the students are technically going away from Google to be able to do this work. And when the work is completed, that work will get translated back to Google Classroom. So if I were to go back to my content now that I have students in here, I could go into my content and see that this is good to go and hit assign. And this is where, again, if I had multiple Google Classrooms in here, I would check off all the classes as it relates to this particular video. And then I could go in and say I want it to be available starting Friday and then have it due maybe next Friday. Hit save. And then here's some buttons that you want to know. Prevent skipping. It's a great button. That means that the student has to watch the video in order to get credit. Or if there's a question that comes up, they can't, fast forward to where the question is, answer it and say they're done. They're forced to watch the video all the way through in order to answer the question. One of the options I didn't show you, but is also in there, if the student gets an answer wrong, let's say a multiple choice question comes up and they did not answer it correctly, EdPuzzle will have it rewind automatically back to the spot that they needed to see to be able to see where the correct answer is and then answer correctly. So again, these are all features within EdPuzzle. The other thing you'll want to do is post it on Google Classroom. So you can slide that on. And then I'm not going to hit this assign button because I don't want to confuse the students that are in here. Those are real students, and I think they'd be very confused why I gave them an Industrial Revolution video and asked them what color it is for the sky. But I think you get the point. When you do hit assign, usually there's one other bubble that comes up that you have to do one other process to hit it to your Google Classroom, and then it would be assigned in Google Classroom. Now, for the related arts teachers, this came up last session. I haven't had a chance to yet verify this, but somebody was saying if there's a specials class that all the kids are inside of specials, would you be able to assign the assignment to a topic afterward? And I believe the answer is yes. You would have to first assign it the way that I'm showing you, then go back into Google Classroom and then edit the assignment to then assign it to a topic. I know that's a super specific thing that I just mentioned, but for those who needed to hear that, I hope that was a helpful piece of advice. At this point, we are getting close to the time. We're running out of time. So I wanted to see if there's any questions and just, if there's anything specific to you that I could help you go over in the next few minutes that we have. Is there a way to upload a video from our drive and add questions? Yes, you definitely can. In fact, that's how I started out in EdPuzzle. I didn't use any videos I found on YouTube. I would make my own videos, record it, and then upload it into EdPuzzle. And same thing, you can trim it. It's actually a very easy way to edit videos if you think about it, because you can trim the parts you want to keep, the ones that you recorded of yourself. You can have the questions come up, it's your face or whatever you want it to be, and then assign it to the student. So certainly, yes, you definitely can do that. Any other questions? Can students turn on closed captionings if I choose? Yes, they can. I believe manually turn that on. What you're just deciding to do, I believe, is saying if it's automatically on there for all students with that slide. Can you still schedule assignment? That went away. What happened there? Can you still schedule the assignment if you assign it to Classroom from EdPuzzle? Yes, I think the only thing that would happen if you go right from Google Classroom, like if you shared the link versus doing that integration feature, may end up that the grading feature may not translate quite the same. And I know that there is an option up here. If I go back to content and I go and found this video and I sign it. Now, if I didn't do this feature with integrating it with Classroom, you could get a public link. The problem with that is you can't keep track of who finished the video. Like, you're not going to be able to see that if you have 20 kids in your class, you maybe put this link on your on-course website. There's no way for you to really manage the students that completed it or not, because I do not believe it keeps track of their scores. So again, something to keep in mind, that you're not going to be able to verify that they completed it if you do it as a public link. If you want to have something in between and not do the Google Classroom part, but also not do the public link part, then what you would do is you would do it within EdPuzzle, which is where you would go back to my classes, add a new class, create a class. You'd have to go through these steps and then end up manually adding the students in that way. Obviously, that's not ideal, but that would be the way that you would avoid Google Classroom and still be able to collect their grades. Any other questions? Have you heard of any other teachers encountered? At this point, no, because I think the ones that are using it already have been using it for quite some time. So I haven't heard of anybody right now with this PD that we're offering today. There's going to be more new users in here than there were before. So I'm sure that people will follow up and let me know, or at least I hope you would. Let me know if you run into some issues and I can share any knowledge I have. I have been sharing this handout that I made, this which has information about Google Meet, Google Classroom, how to create a quiz using the Forms feature and assigning that to Google Classroom, and a little bit on EdPuzzle. Just because of the quick turnaround of doing this, I haven't had a chance to really put a lot of information in EdPuzzle just yet. But I can definitely promise you that I'll continue to add more information in this handout. So if you want to bookmark this for later, I'm going to put this inside of the chat window. So you can go ahead and refer to that at any time. And as I find out more information about the pro codes or any other issues people encounter, I will populate this with more information too. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to kindly invite you to fill out the Lunch and Learn feedback survey, because we really decided what PD we were going to offer this week based on the feedback we got from the last time we did Lunch and Learn. So we really, really are reading the responses here and, bringing people back that people like. So, I certainly recommend that you please fill that out. Let us know how we're doing, if there's anything else that would be relevant to you. As we all know, we are not going to be going back to the building after spring break. So we will be living in the virtual environment a little bit longer. And you may find that there's new tools that you would like more access to, or maybe need more information. So please take a moment to fill that out. I will hang out for another couple of minutes if you have more questions. But other than that, thank you very much. I hope you have a great, restful spring break. And I hope you all stay safe out there.